Hey there, welcome. So today, we're going to talk about something we do all the time, every single day, and that's comparing things. We're going to see how just a few simple words can make your English sound way more descriptive, a lot more precise, and just more powerful. Let's jump right in. So let me ask you this. Are you happier today than you were yesterday? Just think about that for a second. That question right there is a comparison. And we're doing this all the time, right? We compare our moods, our jobs, even our coworkers. It's a huge part of how we talk about our world. So here's what we've got planned. First, we'll look at why we compare things. Then we'll listen in on a real conversation to see how these words actually work. After that, we'll figure out the rules, learn how to add some extra feeling to our comparisons, and then, you guessed it, it's your turn. Okay, first up, the why. It really just boils down to two main ideas. Sometimes you're comparing just two things, one against the other. And other times you're picking just one thing out of a whole big group and saying, this one is number one. And this right here is the key. When it's just two things, like A versus B, we use what's called a comparative, and you'll almost always see the word than with it. But when we're comparing one thing to the whole group, so three or more things, we use a superlative, which uses the word the. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, let's see how this sounds in a real chat. All right, now for the fun part. Let's listen to a short conversation between two people talking about their coworkers. All you have to do is listen carefully and try to catch all the words they use to compare people. Got it? Let's listen. She's much friendlier than I expected. Did you catch that? Much friendlier. Using the word much really punches up the difference, doesn't it? And the other person replies, really? I thought she would be more serious. So here we get the other side of it. More serious is a perfect example of how we handle those longer words. Then we hear, she's more confident and definitely more helpful than most people in the team. See? Two great examples right there. Now she's being compared not just to one person, but to a whole group of people. Then he says, our old manager was the most stressed person in the office. Ah, and there it is, our first superlative. He wasn't just more stressed, he was the most stressed person there. He's being compared to everyone, the entire office. She replies, he's happier now because the new manager is calmer and more organized. Whoa, look at all the comparisons packed into that one sentence. Happier, calmer, more organized. You can really feel the change. We're starting to see some patterns emerge, aren't we? And he finishes with, it's always nicer to work with someone who is kinder and more relaxed. And that's a great way to end the conversation. Using words like nicer and kinder just makes it so clear what kind of work environment he wants. Okay, so you just heard a ton of examples. Now it's time for us to become language detectives. We're going to look back at all those words and figure out what the rules are. Because trust me, there are some really clear patterns going on. All right, detective, first clue. We heard the word kind turn into kinder. So for short words like that, with just one syllable, what's the pattern? What are we adding to the end of the word? Yep, you got it. It's that sound. Okay, next clue in our investigation. What about words that end with the letter Y, like happy or friendly? We heard happier. The ending sounds like ear. So what exactly happens to that letter Y before we add the ending? And for our last clue, let's think about those longer words we heard, like serious or confident. We definitely didn't say seriouser, right? That sounds a little silly. So what did we do instead? What word did we put right in front of it? Okay, detective work is over, and here's the solution. For short words like kind, you just tack on ER for the comparative and EST for the superlative. Easy. For words ending in Y, like happy, you switch that Y to an I, and then you add ER or EST. And for those longer words, guess what? You don't change the word at all. You just put more or the most right before it. Now, of course, every language has its rule breakers, its little rebels, and English is no different. Words like good, bad, and far, well, they just do their own thing. There's no real trick here, these are just ones you gotta remember. So good becomes better, then the best, and bad becomes worse and then the worst. Okay, so you've got the basic rules down. That's awesome. But now it's time to level up. To sound really natural, you need to be able to show how big or how small a difference is. This next part is super important. This is so incredibly useful. If the difference is huge, you can say someone is much friendlier or a lot happier. But if the difference is tiny, you can use words like a bit more relaxed or slightly calmer. See how these little words add so much more detail and feeling to what you're saying? And for superlatives, I've got a fantastic power up for you. If you want to say that someone isn't just the most creative, but that no one else is even close, you use the phrase by far. He is by far the most creative student. It just tells everyone there is absolutely no competition. All right, I know that was a lot of information to take in. So before we finish, let's do a really quick rapid fire review of the most important things to remember. Here it is, nice and simple. Short words get or est. Words ending in y, change that y to an I first. For long words, just use more or most. And don't forget those rebels like good, better, best. And of course, the golden rule, remember to use than for comparatives and the for superlatives. So I'm going to leave you with a little challenge. Think about it for a second. Who is by far the most helpful person you know? Try to answer that question right now, even if it's just in your head. It is the perfect way to start putting all of this into practice. Thanks so much for watching.